Thank you so much for joining us today. Today we have with us David Fletcher from New York's Best Musicians Photo and Video. You know, I'm always talking to you guys about, joining the event industry and, all the ins and outs of being within the event industry. David is a musician and also a video and photographer. And so he does a lot within the event industry. And today we're going to be speaking to him about all that good stuff. So, hi David.
Hi Carlene, thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for thank you for coming. Okay, so you have a small company, right, providing music, photography, videography, and a lot of your clients are within the, are wedding clients. Mm-hmm. So what do you find unique about the wedding industry and the wedding aspect of your work?
Well, what I love about weddings is that people are there for a joyous reason. They're there to have a good time. And it's a time in their lives when they really do appreciate live music. It's also a lot of different ages. Like at a wedding, there's grandparents and young people and middle people. Right. And so as a musician, I get to play all the styles that we know in one evening because the people are so different. And they're there to have a good time. And they're very responsive. At the same time, it's demanding. It's their one wedding, unlike a club or a performance where there's a bunch of different shows. This is their one wedding. So we strive to make that one wedding as perfect as it can be and to do the best job we can be and give them as much fun as we can.
Now, what do you find interesting about weddings as far as when you're performing at a wedding? Like, what's your favorite?
Well, I think watching people have a good time is always fun, and watching people dance. And I think one of the things I like, and this will be modest, is at some point in a wedding, the bride and the groom realize that we really are doing a good job, that we're really trying. And I get a look from the bride that says, yes, you did this right. You really did this the way I wanted it to happen. And she at that point has been through so much, a ceremony and crazy relatives. And so we're the last of the worries. But there is usually at some point in the night when they notice how good it is, how much fun it is. And that always gives me a warm feeling because I know that I kind of made the day for them.
Right. What's the difference between live music and DJing that you feel brings more to the table when it comes to a wedding or any performance at all?
Well, I think both have their places. I mean, obviously I'm a live musician, and it used to be said that musicians and DJs are natural enemies. We're really not, because I think DJs can do a great job, and for some events and some weddings they're perfect, and they do much more than a live musician could possibly do, because we're human beings. We can only go so far. The closest analogy I can come up with is that when you hire a band or a musician, it's kind of like you're buying a painting. When you hire a DJ, you're hiring a house painter. So when you hire a house painter, they'll paint your rooms whatever color you want. Right. Purple, blue, black, whatever. You choose the paint and then put it on. Right. When you're buying a painting, you can change the frame a little bit, but you can't really change the essence of the painting. So in one way, you're buying something or hiring something that's unique. The other difference is that live music is different each time. It's by its very nature not perfect. A DJ, it's going to be that same song every time. Now that's great if you want that same song every time, and there's something to be said that you don't want a band playing that song badly. But for us, the songs or how we play the songs is different each time.
So you work with planners, I'm assuming, right? Does planners come to you to say, hey David, I have a wedding and we're trying to figure out if you would be a good fit for this wedding. What would you say, how would you help the planner see if live music would be a good aspect for this, for their particular client? Like, what are some things that you would?
Well, sure, and I think, planners come and sometimes they come after us. Sometimes we're hired first, and then the planner comes in the day of, and that's a different conversation. Sometimes the client has developed a relationship with the planner, and that planner has gotten to know that client pretty well, as I'm sure you get to know your clients pretty well. And so you can really speak to their personality and know what's going to work for them. So I think that information, knowing what the client wants and what they expect, that we can get from the planner, or somebody that knows the bride and groom some way. One of the things that frightens me a little bit is there are some weddings where I never speak for the bride or the groom.
Don't you hate that?
Hate is a strong word in the wedding industry, But it's scary because you're walking in, you have
It
no
is
idea
scary.
what they want.
You don't know what they want,
who
right.
they are, and I like to get to know them so that
Right.
I'm prepared to do something. And then it also avoids misunderstandings.
Right.
You know, like if they expected the DJ and we show up, or vice versa.
Right.
You know, I think that's bad. And I think good planners, I know you're a great one, really take the time to get to know their clients.
Exactly.
You know, you really get under the skin a little bit. You really get to understand them.
Exactly.
And I think that helps us both do a better job.
Right. Okay. So decisions can be overwhelming, right? How do you help make the bride and groom's decision easier as far as providing music and music selections?
Well, we try to provide as much information as possible, and we also try to direct them elsewhere if we're not going to provide the thing that they're asking for. On our website, we do have a couple of handy guides. One is how to choose musicians, especially if you're calling from afar or you don't have time to audition people. You know, how do you choose somebody? How do you
Right.
find somebody in a different town? And over the years, I've often been asked to help a relative or a friend or a client to find somebody good in a completely different city, somebody that I don't know. And there are steps you can go through to find somebody that would be good. That's the first question. Second question is what to play, you know, what
Right.
music to play. The thing that brides often struggle with is what to walk down the aisle to that's not canon D.
Right.
You know, and they often end up with that 'cause they've seen it every possible soap opera,
Yeah.
every TV, every possible TV
Yeah.
wedding, they've seen that happen. So they can be a little frightening to choose something completely new.
Exactly.
I think it's fun when brides and grooms and planners make it their own. You know, choose their taste, just say this is what we want, and get people that'll do it. We provide guidance, and we'll tell somebody if something is really going to mess up.
Right.
And it can. I mean, there are things people will choose. I can tell them up front.
It's not going to work.
It's not going to work. You think that's fun now, but when you get there,
it's really not going to work.
So we try to guide them, but that doesn't mean they can't be more unique. You know, we've had people do ceremony entrances to all reggae music.
Okay.
We've had them leave to Another One Bites the Dust. I mean,
Right.
you can really
Change it up.
and have it be a little surprising.
Right. So what questions do clients most ask when arranging music for their wedding? Like, what are some of the questions you find?
By the time they've hired us, which is sort of the biggest, hardest question, they're not asking those hard questions anymore. You know, and some of the hard questions are, well, band versus DJ. You know, do you have a band and it can be more expensive?
Right.
It's a little more complicated. It's buying a painting versus a DJ. It can be less expensive, not necessarily. You know, that's one big question. Once they've resolved that big question, and we certainly would guide them to hiring us, then the other questions usually are about timing. You know, like what happens when? And who determines what happens when? And this can be, as a planner, you know, this can be boggling because they're at the event, it's crazy, they got a million relatives harassing them.
Yeah.
You know, how do they know when to do things? And I think that's where you and I come in, you know, where we've done thousands of weddings, so we can kind of sense
How to orchestrate all this.
yeah, when the best time is. Because timing is often everything. You do something at the wrong time, and it can be either anticlimactic or it can not work. So a good planner will figure that out in advance for them. I think the other questions are how to make it all work without, you know, blowing the budget.
Right.
You know, and that's usually a big question. We try to help with that. I think one of the things we see a lot of is our add-ons. You know, they hire a caterer and they forget that he was supposed to bring the chairs. We've seen that happen. So they hire the caterer, and then a week before the wedding, they don't have chairs. So then they have to go back to the caterer and say, yeah, I'm sure you've seen that, you know, like with these add-ons.
Exactly.
Well, we try to avoid that because I know how stressful it is when you think you have your car fixed and it's not fixed.
And it's not, right.
Or you think you have a rental and it doesn't come with plumbing, you know. So we try to answer those questions and figure out how many services we can lump in before they sign the contract, so that they're not surprised later or didn't think about something, like sound for the ceremony, or microphones for the officiant, you know, things like that are different than what we often do.
I'm glad you mentioned budget, because how does one, you know, figure out what budget, you know, they should work with when it comes to live music? Is there like a certain range, or is it like, you know, every individual request is different? How do you help a client with budgeting your services?
It's a complicated question because with live musicians and bands, we do get calls from clients for whom money is no object. Literally, money is no object.
Right.
For us normal people, money is very much an object.
Right.
And I think for most normal people planning their weddings, you know, they're trying to save money for a mortgage or a car,
Exactly.
or a lot of the things that are just as important as the wedding. So we do try to remind people, I know this is probably counterintuitive and against my own interests, to remind people that the wedding is just a party. You know, marriage is important, weddings are not. You know, it's a party, and it's an important party, it's a fun party, but it's
Right.
that
But
one
it's a
party.
party.
It's a party.
Right.
So in terms of the cost of things, I think realistically for a dance band, it's going to be anywhere from $2,500 up. That would be sort of the basic minimum. DJs, you'll see DJs for $500 or $600
Right.
and up. And then the question is, how do you figure out the value in between? Sadly to say, there's no rhyme or reason. Don't look for a rationale in the marketplace. You know, why does a wedding dress cost 1,000,000 times more than a
Right.
white dress? You know, so there's not a rational. The market kind of determines what things go for. So if a lot of people are paying X amount of dollars for a band, that is the market, whether it's rational or not.
Or not, right.
The band I play in, I'll plug here, our flagship band, Amaretto, we've been together about 30 years. We go out for about $7,500 in that range. We're often told that we're way less expensive than we should be. The clients only ever tell us that after the wedding. Yeah, if they charge the next person more.
Of course.
And then we'll see bands that are 20, 30, 40,
Right.
you know, you can hire like name acts for that kind of money. And then bands that are vastly cheaper that can work. You know, you have some buddies that play in a band and, you know, they do it for free food.
Right.
You know, why not? with our photography and video is vastly less expensive. You know, we developed that to accommodate people that didn't have a big budget for things. So our videography is $500, our photography is $750. These are very affordable numbers for most people.
Right. What were some of your challenges when you first came into the industry and you realized that you wanted to, you know, take this on as a profession and say, I'm going to do music within the event industry and weddings and so on and so forth? What were some of the challenges that you faced?
One big challenge with any event service, I think, is quality control. You know, when you're doing a lot of events, how do you make sure each event is spectacular? And I've seen so many businesses, and I think I can even say this about my business,
Right.
where if we grew too fast, quality started to slow down, or go back, or go in the wrong direction.
The wrong direction, right.
So I think quality control is a real challenge.
What advice would you give someone that's coming into the event industry as a musician and say, I want to start, you know, my profession, you know, my professional career in the event industry? What would you say?
Well, for musicians, I would say marry well.
Oh, wow.
Just kidding about that. There are a lot of jokes about that. I think for musicians, diversify. You know how to do every possible kind of music, classical, jazz, top 40. If you're doing just one thing, it's going to be very hard to make a decent living at it. And we diversified not just in music, but obviously doing photo video, because
Right.
it was a natural extension of what musicians are trained to do video, which has to do with timing, and photography, which has to do with composition and feeling things. So for young people, I say diversify. I say do every possible gig. You know, play every possible place you can play to get what it is to play live music. You know, I see these younger people playing in the park. I think that's great. You know, I realize they're doing it for the tips.
Right.
But you really do get a sense of a tough audience,
Right.
and you develop your skills as a musician. So many great people started exactly there.
Right. So a good point that you brought up photo and video, because usually they say, you know, try to be specific and specialize in one area. How did you bridge music and photo and video into one to, you know, take off in that
To do
way?
both?
Yeah.
Well, we had been doing music videos before, and we've been doing photography of talent before. So back in 1991, when we started getting a little busier, we thought that because we were already doing it, it'd be a fairly easy translation to do a wedding, because it's the same kind of function, you know, it's the
Right.
same kind of technology, you have the technology. Most musicians, not all, and maybe not me, have people skills. You know, they can relate to people. People that play weddings like people. That's why they're doing it. Well, hopefully they like people. So, and I think those same skills translate to somebody that does photography and videography. So much of it has to do with how the client experiences us that day.
Right.
I mean, the product is important, but that day is important too. So
Right.
if they have a photographer or videographer that's grumpy or disheveled or, you know, not fun,
Of course.
it kind of messes up the day. They might get, and I've seen it both ways. I've seen really horrible people at weddings take great photos later. And I've seen really nice people at weddings take horrible photos later.
Right.
So it's a trade-off. We found that the skills that musicians have, especially with timing, really translated well to video, because when you're taking video, you have to be listening. You can't just watch. People that just watch a video are going to mess up the timing, the sound. And it's partially true, too, of photography. You know, it's about the timing. Well, the timing of taking photos. You know, you probably experienced this as a planner, where the photographer takes 2 hours after the wedding to do the photos. It messes up the day. You know, it drains them of that energy, of that time they should be with their friends and family. So part of it for us is learning how to do things fast enough so that it's pleasant that day.
So in what ways can an event professional in the event industry get the most out of contributing to the event industry? What ways can they contribute?
They can contribute. The first question for them is how they make it. You know, like how they survive in the events industry, because as we know, it's competitive and it's, you know, saturated, and dollars are here or not there. So very often the first question, well, how do you make it? And, you know, how do you survive? How do you make a decent living? And the same is true with musicians. You know, we touched on that before. Like, how does a musician make a decent living? In that middle ground between being famous, you know, like Colin Cowie, or somebody that has no gigs. So how do you make it? And I think one of the things we've both been working on with Yep and ILEA is information. You know, giving people more skills.
Now, just not sure to cut you off, but Yep is the Young Event Professionals organization. It's a networking organization. Also, ILEA is an event industry professional organization as well. And so I love both associations. They're wonderful associations to be a part of if you're in the event industry. So just in case you didn't know, you know, what ILEA and Yep is they're professional organizations that you definitely want to be a part of if you're in the event industry. And there's so many more, you know, associations.
Yeah,
right?
there are, and I think those are the two best ones.
Yes,
of course, we're in those.
I do think so too.
Yeah, those are terrible. But it touches on that, which is how to expand your network.
Right.
And when you expand your network with other people in your area, you get more information, you become more aware and more skillful at what you're doing.
Right.
And you also meet other people in the industry that then can tell you, as a planner, you need to keep abreast of caterers and venues and everything.
Exactly.
Musicians, I should be keeping better abreast of musical taste, what other people are doing in my area, in my network. So the associations can do that. I think contributing, volunteering, I think that's great. Since I've been in New York, in fact, I just got another volunteer gig today. I've done many volunteer musical projects that were worthwhile, musically interesting, fun people, zero money. But at some point at the end of life, you have to decide what was more important to have, you know, a bank account or the experiences. So I think that's true with events. I think there's so many places that could use more event planning, more event professionals. They might not have a budget at this point. But if you're new in the industry or even have time in the industry, I think it's great when people contribute their talents and donate their time to plan things for people that need things planned.
Well, thank you so much, David.
Well, thank you, Carlene.
Is there anything else you wanted to add?
No, just, you know, thank you, Carlene. And, you know.
Thank you guys for joining us today. I really hope that you really, you know, took in all the information that David has shared with us today. There's a lot to be, you know, to learn, whether you're a musician, whether you're, you know, you're an event planner and you're helping clients with, you know, music selections, and whether they should go with a DJ or a live, you know, musical performance at, you know, at their event. It's key for you to have these, you know, this knowledge to make sure that you know, or you stay in the know of what's going on within your industry as far as, you know, music selections and, you know, all of that good stuff. So thank you again for joining us, and I will see you next time. Bye.